Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery, and here we don't just tell celebrity stories for nostalgia. We use them as case studies about creativity, resilience, character, and the invisible decisions that shape extraordinary lives. And I'll tell you my honest opinion right away, I strongly agree with the first half. Weird Al is one of the clearest examples in modern entertainment that you can build a legendary career by leaning into what makes you unusual without becoming cruel, cynical, or fake. But the second half, the heartbreak, matters more than most people realize. Not because tragedy explains his talent, but because it reveals something deeper about him, how he responds when life stops being funny. Before we dive in, quick favor, if you enjoy documentaries with story plus analysis and you want more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share. It tells YouTube this content matters and it gives us real motivation to keep producing long-form, high-quality scripts like this. Alright. Let's get into it. Why Weird Al is a one of one, and why that matters for your life. There has never been a superstar quite like Weird Al Yankovic, and it's not just because he plays accordion or writes parodies. It's because his entire brand is built on a message most people are terrified to live by: I'm not going to beg the world to approve of me. I'm going to show up as myself, and let the right people find me. That is an extremely expensive choice. Most people spend their lives doing the opposite. Smoothing off their edges. Hiding the cringe parts. Shrinking their personality into what they think is acceptable. And then wondering why life feels dull and crowded at the same time. Weird Al did something else. He took the things that might have been used to embarrass him: quirkiness, awkwardness, nerdiness, and turned them into a career that has lasted for decades. And here's what makes him genuinely inspiring: he didn't do it by becoming mean. He didn't do it by humiliating others. He built success with a tone that feels almost rare in modern culture: playful, disciplined, and oddly kind. But he didn't start as a confident icon. He started as a kid in a very controlled environment. Dr. Demento, the perfect doorway for a kid who didn't fit anywhere else. In the 1970s, novelty and comedy music wasn't mainstream radio's priority. But one place embraced it: the Dr. Demento Show, hosted by Barry Hansen. This mattered because cultural ecosystems need weird spaces. Every movement needs an underground place where the unusual is normal. For punk, it's a small venue. For stand-up, it's a comedy club. For Weird Al, it was a radio show that took silly music seriously. As a teenager, Al sent in a parody and it landed. And that begins a theme that runs through his entire life: Weird Al didn't wait for permission from the mainstream. He built momentum in the margins until the mainstream had to notice. That is a crucial lesson for anyone trying to build something new: don't beg the gatekeepers. Build the audience. Building the band: why loyalty is part of the brand. Weird Al didn't build a solo celebrity machine. He built a stable, long-term team. His core band has remained remarkably consistent over the decades. In entertainment, that's rare. And it signals something very specific: he doesn't treat people as disposable. In industries driven by ego, a long-standing team often means the leader has a certain kind of character. Predictable. Respectful. Consistent. And serious about craft. People stay where they feel valued. This is one reason Weird Al's career has a unique, clean energy, compared to many celebrities. You don't often hear horror stories of chaos around him. You hear about preparation, permission as a strategy, why he asked when he didn't have to. A lot of people have heard this claim: parody is protected under fair use, so he didn't strictly need permission. But Weird Al consistently sought approval from artists anyway. That's not a legal requirement. That's a relational strategy. It signaled: I'm not here to take your dignity. I'm here to play. That's why so many artists tolerated him, respected him, and sometimes even enjoyed it. Even when an artist said no, the refusal didn't destroy him. It sharpened him. Because the refusal forced him to be more inventive. And that is the hidden engine of his career: constraint creates creativity. Artists who said no, why rejection improved his career. Some artists refused parody requests for personal or brand reasons. And here's the mature lesson: when someone says no to your creative idea, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means your idea doesn't fit their boundaries. Weird Al took those boundaries seriously. And ironically, that respect made him more trusted over time. Because trust is built not by doing what you want. Trust is built by respecting what others won't allow. That's how you sustain a long career in any industry. When artists said no, why rejection improved his career. Some artists refused. And this is where Weird Al's mindset becomes a masterclass. Most people interpret rejection as a personal insult. Weird Al interpreted it as a boundary to respect, and a creative constraint to route around. For example, reports about his career frequently mentioned that some of his parody concepts were declined by the original artists for a variety of reasons, sometimes content, sometimes values, sometimes branding. Here's what matters. Every no forced Weird Al to become less predictable. If a performer gets everything they want, they often become repetitive. Constraints are painful, but they are also a forge. They burn away lazy habits. They force innovation. This is a powerful lesson beyond music. If your path is too smooth, you might be missing the pressure that makes you exceptional. The Suits versus the Artist: How Label Politics Created Some of His Biggest Moments. Weird Al's career also reveals a reality most fans never see. Sometimes the artist says yes, and the label says no. That dynamic became publicly visible in incidents like the song, You're Pitiful, his parody of James Blunt's, You're Beautiful. Blunt reportedly supported it, but the label situation blocked official album release, leading Weird Al to distribute it online instead. And notice the principle he followed: he wasn't trying to win against the label. He was trying to honor what he believed was fair to fans and respectful to the artist. That's part of why his reputation stayed unusually clean. In an industry full of messy conflicts, he consistently chose the least ego-driven option. Real-life story: why owning your weird is a career advantage. Let me translate that into a real-life example outside of music. Imagine two people applying for the same job. Person A tries to be the perfect candidate. They mirror the company, use the same buzzwords, and hide anything unusual. Person B is competent too, but they also clearly own something distinctive: an unusual background, a specific obsession, a niche expertise, a personal voice. Who gets remembered? Usually person B. Because in competitive environments, being acceptable is not enough. You need a signal. Weird Al's signal was extreme, accordion parody comedy. But the principle applies to anyone: your weird is not a weakness if you develop it into value. The danger is when people have quirks but no craft. Quirk without craft is just randomness. Weird Al built craft. That's why the weird became wealth. Mandatory Fun and the shift away from albums. Weird Al released Mandatory Fun on July 15, 2014, and it is often described as his most recent studio album. More recently, he has spoken publicly about moving away from the traditional album cycle and preferring the freedom of singles, an approach that fits modern media speed better. This is not retirement. It's optimization. Albums require long lead times. Parody thrives on timeliness. So the business model changed and he changed with it. That's another pattern in his career: he never clung to a format for ego reasons. He used formats as tools. The hard turn: when life stopped being funny. Now we arrive at the chapter most fans either don't know, or don't like to think about. In April 2004, while Weird Al was on tour, his parents Nick and Mary Yankovic died at their home in Fallbrook, California. We have unusually clear documentation for this because Weird Al released a public statement describing it as a terrible accident. They had started a fire in the fireplace with the flue closed, and carbon monoxide caused fatal asphyxiation. Reuters reporting from the time also described authorities finding a fire still burning and the home filling with toxic fumes due to the closed flue. This is heartbreaking on multiple levels. It was sudden. It was domestic. It was preventable in the most tragic way. And it happened while he was away performing, living in the public eye. And here is where the story becomes bigger than biography. Because the question part 3 will answer is not, what happened? We know what happened. The real question is, what does it take to return to the stage after the kind of pain that makes laughter feel impossible? That's where Weird Al's character becomes the main story. Real-life story, the first time you function again after loss. Let me give you a real-life example that explains this better than any celebrity context. Many people who've lost a parent, a partner, a close friend, they remember the first, normal, moment afterward. The first time you go to the grocery store and suddenly forget, for 3 seconds, that your life changed. The first time you laugh at a joke and then immediately feel guilty. The first time you wake up and there's a micro moment where you expect the world to be the old world. Those moments are not disrespect. They're evidence your nervous system is trying to survive. Grief doesn't only break your heart. It breaks your operating system. So when someone manages to return to a demanding public role, especially a role that requires joy that isn't shallow, that's strength. And I want to be careful with the word strength, because people sometimes weaponize it. Be strong becomes a way to pressure someone into performing recovery. That's not what we're doing here. We're saying something more honest. Continuing does not mean you are not hurting. Continuing means you are carrying the hurt and living anyway. That's the real definition of resilience. The Weird Al paradox, how a man who plays the fool is actually serious about ethics. Here's the paradox that makes Weird Al fascinating: he is professionally ridiculous. But he is personally disciplined. He made a career from being the clown, but not the chaotic clown, not the cruel clown, not the self-destructive clown. He is the rare version, the clown who behaves like a craftsman. And when you look at his long-term band stability, his reputation for professionalism, and his insistence on respect, even in parody, you start to see why the world kept him around. Many entertainers burn out because they confuse attention with identity. Weird Al didn't. He treated attention as a platform, not a drug. That's why, even after the music industry changed, he could adapt, shifting away from traditional albums while still creating. And it's why his story matters beyond entertainment. Because it offers a model for how to live. What his story teaches you: the best weird life isn't aesthetic, it's a decision. People here live your weird life and think it means dress differently, post quirky content, be random, be eccentric for attention. That's not what Weird Al's life teaches. His weird is not random. It is structured. It is cultivated. It is earned. And that leads us to the most empowering lesson of this documentary: your weirdness is not your advantage unless you develop it into value. The world doesn't reward difference by default. The world punishes difference, until difference becomes excellence. Weird Al turned difference into excellence. Not by forcing people to accept him, but by working so hard that the only honest response became, I may not understand it, but I can't deny it. That's what you want. Not approval, credibility. Climax: why this story is really about courage. Now we reach the climax. And I want you to pay attention, because this is where the story becomes yours. Most people believe courage means doing something scary. Weird Al's story reveals another kind of courage, the courage to be visible as yourself. That's the courage to let people misunderstand you. Let people laugh at you before they learn to laugh with you. Let people label you. And still keep going. And then, after tragedy, it becomes a deeper courage, the courage to keep bringing light without pretending darkness doesn't exist. Because that is the adult version of optimism. Not naive positivity. Not denial. But a deliberate choice: I will not let pain turn me into a bitter person. That is rare. That is powerful. And that is the most inspiring part of his life. Emotionally impactful ending: what to do today, not tomorrow. I want to end with something direct. If you're watching this, there is a strong chance you're holding back a part of yourself. You have a weird idea. A weird talent. A weird interest. A weird sense of humor. A weird dream. And you keep it hidden because you fear the same thing everyone fears, rejection. But here is what Weird Al's story, especially the tragedy chapter, should make you confront: you do not get unlimited time to become yourself. The world can change overnight. A phone call can split your life into before and after. So if you're waiting for permission, stop. Permission does not arrive. It is taken. Not aggressively. Not arrogantly. Quietly, consistently, through action. Here's the practical challenge: pick one thing you've been hiding. And take one small step to build it into value this week. Write the first draft. Upload the first video. Practice the skill for 30 minutes a day. Join the community you've been lurking in silently. Apply for the role that scares you. Start the project even if your tools are imperfect. Because the point isn't to be instantly great. The point is to stop being invisible. And if grief has touched your life, if you've lost someone, if you're carrying pain, then let this be your reminder: joy is not disrespect. Joy is not betrayal. Joy can be a form of love. Continuing can be a form of honor. Not because pain isn't real, but because life is. So live your best weird life, not as a costume, but as a commitment. Be kind. Be disciplined. Be unapologetically yourself. And when the world tries to shame you for being different, remember this: the people who change culture are rarely normal at the start. They become normal only after the world catches up. Thank you for watching. If this story gave you something meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs permission to be themselves. And I want you to leave a comment because I read them. What is one weird part of you that you're done hiding?